home equity withdrawal. Banks were allowed from the 1980s in this country to lend people increased loans against the rising value of their property for buying cars, for holidays, home improvements. Again, the first time in history. And all of this essentially propped up Anglo-Saxon economies, and it's been sort of talked about as privatized Keynesianism, this continued borrowing, the low interest rates in some cases that this has enabled. It's clearly not sustainable, but it has been kept going, and certainly been kept going in the post-crisis period through very low interest rates. In summary then, the modern financialized economy, land values can be realized via mortgage equity withdrawal in liberal market economies. And banks make profits not from funding productive enterprise, but from monetizing via interest charges the land rents I discussed earlier from the increasing prices that they themselves have created from their own lending. So it makes sense. It's not a case of the banks being evil or bad. It's simply the incentive structure and the type of institutions they are that enables this to happen. What does all this mean for the wider economy and society? Well, usefully for this talk and less usefully for the book, the ONS, the Office of National Statistics, for the first time ever began to publish the value of land as an asset separate from the rest of the economy, separate from dwellings, in November of last year. And this is the rather startling result once you've mapped the data. Now, this shows non-financial assets, so it excludes bonds and pensions, etc., and deposits as a percentage of GDP in the UK. And what, of course, is most remarkable is that the sort of traditional capital stock, machinery, IT, equipment, the stuff that actually enables us to produce stuff and a measure of our productive capacity, has stayed relatively flat since 1995 at around 150% of GDP. Housing, excluding land, has gently sort of risen, but land itself, the value of land, has massively increased in the run-up to the housing crisis, and again maintained that level. So essentially we are living in a world now where our wealth has sort of detached from our productive capacity of the economy. Now, if we take capital gains from land out of measures of wealth, for example, just leaving this sort of savings from capital stock, then Thomas Piketty's wealth-to-income ratio, famous wealth-to-income ratio, actually hasn't been growing since the 1950s, as this chart shows. It's actually been declining. So this is the wealth-to-income ratio on this axis. And if you exclude capital gains, the blue here, you can see it's been falling since about the 1980s, i.e., the rise in house prices and land values has been the major explanation for increasing wealth. Nothing to do with improvements in productivity or increases in the capital stock. And I think this is key to help explaining the productivity puzzle that economists are very concerned about at the moment.